The Conjuring is possibly one of the most iconic horror series of all time. Starting in 2013, it has spanned 9 long movies, and now this year we have the latest installment, The Conjuring: Last Rites. So, is this installment worth it? Or should you skip it on your next horror movie watch? Hello, my fellow freaks. It is I, Frankie, your local horror enthusiast, and today we'll be discussing the plot of The Last Rites, as well as me giving my own personal thoughts and reviews. If you have anything you'd like me to watch, or you have your own thoughts on the movie, please comment down below, and now, let's get our spook on. Just a quick warning before we get into this. This will be a spoiler warning real quick, as well as a trigger warning. If you're sensitive to vomiting, attempted murder, actual murder, talks of cheating, as well as suicide, I highly suggest you not watch this video. But if you decide to stick around, let's get into it. Just a quick warning before we get into this. This will be a spoiler warning real quick, as well as a trigger warning. If you're sensitive to vomiting, attempted murder, actual murder, talks of cheating, as well as suicide, I highly suggest you not watch this video. But if you decide to stick around, let's get into it. Starting off with our main characters, Lorraine and Ed Warren, in the 60s, we see that they are currently investigating a haunted mirror in an old antique shop. And during this scene, we also find out Lorraine is pregnant, and she goes in, and side note, this mirror is, I absolutely love the design of this mirror. I would own it if I could. But continuing on the topic at hand, she ends up touching the mirror, has a spooky vision, the mirror cracks, and she goes into labor. Rule 1 of messing with ghosts or demons: don't hunt them while you're pregnant. That baby is going to either end up dead or possessed. I know this is supposed to be their first case and all, but seriously, they should have some knowledge. Even Ed showed concern earlier, so why didn't he just go in? They end up making it to the hospital, but however, the power goes out, and while Lorraine is giving birth, she ends up seeing some hands on the wall. Creepy. Eventually, the baby is born, but sadly, the baby was born stillborn. But after a while, surprise! Baby's alive and crying! Without any medical intervention. What a miracle! We get to see a quick montage of Judy's early life, as well as the fact that she has visions similar to her mom's. Along with that, we also learn the fact that singing in the nursery rhyme, Lucy Lockett, helps calm her down in this case. Now, this is just a little me thing, but I think it would be a lot more funnier if they had the nursery rhyme instead be the Lizzie Borden's rhyme. You'll probably see why in a bit, but I think it'd just be a bit more ironic. So far, this kind of feels just classic, like, horror movie things. I feel like they're trying to get us to care about Judy through showing us her early life, or the fact that she was stillborn but came back to life. However, I think personally that it didn't really work in my case, and it just felt kind of just, am I supposed to care? In fact, on that, I feel like they're trying to get us to also care about Lorraine and Ed in this case. However, I feel like if you haven't really seen any of the previous Conjuring movies, or aren't really a fan of the Warrens' work in general, it just feels like, why am I supposed to care about you? We time skip to the 80s, where we're introduced to the Smurls, which my brain kept autocorrecting to the Smurfs. We find out that it's one of the older girls, Heather's communion, and as a gift, her grandparents get her a mirror. And what do you know? It's the same mirror Lorraine and Ed encountered. Look, it's even got the crack and everything. They bring out this really nice looking cake for her. And side note, I'm not Christian, but if anybody is and had a communion and had a party after, did y'all have cake? Please let me know, because I'm actually generally really curious. But before Heather can blow it out, her candle's blown out and Heather blames her sister Dawn. But, however, right after that, a light falls on Heather. Yeah, this is where stuff starts getting real. Next scene, we're shown Lorraine and Ed giving a presentation to a handful of people, and find out that basically they've been retired because of Ed's worsening heart condition. Also, shout out to the group of students in that scene for basically calling them the Ghostbusters, because if you don't know me, I love the Ghostbusters, and that actually kind of made me laugh. They end up going out for dinner with Judy, and Judy has another vision, which she's helped through by her mom. And we also hear the first time Tony, who's Judy's boyfriend, and basically she's going to bring him over to her dad's birthday. Meanwhile, for the Smurls, things are getting pretty spooky. Heather and Dawn decide the mirror is creepy and end up throwing it out. Which, like, kind of rude. Okay, I get it creeps you out, but yeah, it's still a gift. Like, put it in the attic. But the next morning comes around and the garbage truck comes and ends up crushing the mirror. And as that happens, Dawn ends up throwing up blood and glass, which actually generally surprised me. I thought they were going to go for the whole, oh, the mirror came back unscathed kind of thing. But this actually generally surprised me. So kudos to the movie, I guess. Along with that, one of the twins ends up getting their own creepy little doll moment where the doll walks off, gets lifted up, and the ghost appears like, "Sup, bitch?" Along with that, Judy starts rewinding the tape, trying to figure out if she could see anything that blew out her candle, and ends up seeing a face and gets chased by an axe ghost. Fun. As well as that, the dad, John, ends up getting lifted up and paralyzed by a ghost. So yeah, these bitches are haunted. They end up going to the press, which, side note, that's basically asking for more chaos. Like, why didn't you call an exorcist in the first place? But this press does get the attention of Father Gordon, which is one of the previous characters in the Conjuring series. Meanwhile, seems pretty good for the Warrens. Judy brings over her boyfriend Tony, and he seems to get along with the family good enough, and they end up getting engaged despite only being together for 6 months. Which, like, I am not claiming to be a romance expert from the 80s, but 6 months? Dude, that is way too early, and they even address this in the movie. We also get some creepy fun visions from Judy, including one where she sees Annabelle, and another one where she's going to get her wedding dress and ends up getting a ghost under her skirt instead of the dressmaker. Did no one teach the ghost about consent? Eventually, we get to see Father Gordon at the Smurls, and he tries to cleanse the place, but ends up deciding, yeah, I need some backup. But while going to get that help, he ends up encountering the demon, and the demon makes him kill himself. At the funeral, Judy ends up touching Father Gordon's casket and sees how he dies and decided she needs to go help the Smurls. All by herself. Without telling anyone. You are possibly going to deal with supernatural forces that you think had the ability to make someone commit suicide, and you're going there alone without telling anyone, including your very experienced ghost hunter parents. What is wrong with you? But eventually the Warrens and Tony find her at the Smurls, and we actually get 2 scenes I decently enjoyed. That being Lorraine and Ed talking about the mirror and how it was their first ghost hunt and how they didn't go back because they were afraid. And that sparking their motto of never running away. Including, after that, a scene with Tony and Ed about Tony talking about a time while he was a cop where he nearly died and deciding to end up living his life to the fullest, including marrying Judy. Aww. You're still not getting that comment I made about it being weird that you're getting engaged only after 6 months? Taken back, though. Lorraine ends up finding out that there are 3 ghosts in this case, a man, a woman, and an old woman, that the woman had an affair, and her husband, who was the man, ended up killing her and her mother. She says basically that the demon is controlling them, and that's kind of all we get of information for that. Yeah, this thing being one of the main villains, you'd expect us to at least get a little more information on the demon, but not really. It's just kind of this presence of evil, kind of, which I enjoy all, don't get me wrong, but I kind of just wish they expanded upon it a little more. They decide that they need to get rid of the mirror and get it to safekeeping, so Tony, John, and Ed decide to try and take the mirror into the car. And while that happens, Judy starts getting pretty sick and Lorraine's watching after her. And because we still have like 20 minutes left in the movie, it doesn't work, and the father ends up breaking his foot, and the ghost ends up possessing Judy and getting Lorraine trapped in the basement. She starts going up the stairs and ends up giving Ed a heart attack, calling back to his heart problems. Meanwhile, downstairs, Lorraine is chased by the axe ghost we saw earlier. Hear me out. They end up going to the attic where they see Judy trying to hang herself and eventually are able to get her down. They think she's dead for a hot second, but surprise, she's not, because I guess? The mirror starts being all creepy and starts spinning, and Ed tries to call it out with a passage. However, in this case, the mirror's like, you think that's gonna work on me? And ends up trying to basically crush them all and getting Tony a bit in the process. He's like fine in the end, but like, please tell me they took him to a hospital. Is his leg okay? Is his neck okay? Is he okay? Lorraine and Judy end up stopping the mirror by using their powers. Yeah, I didn't really get the scene. But in the end, Judy and Tony get married. Lorraine shares to Ed about a vision she had where they grow old and basically have an awesome life. And that's where the movie ends. So that was The Conjuring Last Rites. And personally, I just think it was meh. It just felt really predictable at times. Like, you could tell when a jump scare was going to happen. Me and my friend who went to see this actually ended up making a game about what we bet was going to happen, and most of our guesses ended up being correct. It felt kind of disconnected from the horror. Like, there were a lot of pauses between the actual spooky stuff and, like, general life, and it all kind of throwed it at you at the end. Also, we generally don't get too much on the ghost or the actual demon in the mirror. We only get really the basics for the ghost, that they were a woman, man, an old lady, the woman had an affair, husband killed them, you know, classic stuff. But we barely get anything on the demon in this case. And that just might be my personal preference, but I really would have liked if they had expanded on it. The special effects were pretty good and the acting was well. However, it just felt very bare bones kind of sometimes. Like, you know what you're gonna get, and sometimes there's a little pepper for spice, but you generally knew what you're gonna get. It wasn't really bad, it just felt kind of bland. I would have liked if they'd used some of the filler time to let us know more about the demon, more about the ghost, more about Judy generally, because it felt like we didn't get too much on her other than the fact that she had these visions. So in the end, for me personally, I'm going to give The Conjuring Last Rites 4 out of 10 stars. But of course, these are all my opinions, and if you have your own, I'd love to hear about them. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Horror enthusiasts out!